Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kev Baker, and this is the Kev Baker Show. Hope you've all recovered from pigging out on turkey dinners and all the stuffing and all the trimmings that come with it. And of course, I hope you've all had a lovely Christmas, a lovely holiday, some nice time with the family, doing what you do, doing what you enjoy, and with the people you love. And I'm glad to see you all back here tonight. And I'm certainly with somebody I love again tonight. What a show we have got lined up. And it's like going back in a time machine. It really is. And you'll hear in just a moment just how good this show is going to be. But like I say, you've just had your Christmas, so I hope you've all had a good time. You've all recharged your batteries. I enjoyed 2 well-earned days off. So I've been catching up on some much-needed sleep time, some family time, and I'm certainly raring to go. And I can't think of a better show to really kick off this almost like a new season of shows. And that's because it's that time of year again, folks. Yes, it's the time of year where people like me try to make sense of something that may hold the key to everything or could be a whole lot of nothing. And that I will let you decide. And it may hold clues to what comes in the year ahead. That's right, at this time of year, every year, the Economist magazine release an issue that they entitle The World In. And for the whole time I've been doing this show, I think it's the past 3 or 4 years now, I have had the pleasure of analysing the world in 2016, 2017, 2018. And of course, tonight we'll be taking a look at the year 2019. Now, to celebrate each of these special editions in the past, there has been an extra special cover which has been produced, which on the face of it appears to represent the trends predicted and stories contained within the pages. However, there is far more to it than just that. For what we are looking at is something which holds far greater meaning, if only for those with the eyes to see it. Now, that's because The Economist is partly owned by the Rothschild family. And even their editor-in-chief, a guy called John Micklethwaite, he's a regular at the Bilderberg meetings. So the people that are behind The Economist don't just second-guess what the elite's agenda is for the year ahead. Some of them have literally helped to formulate it. When it comes to the elites, as we've spoke about in the past, they're no strangers to the practices of the occult and magic, if you want to express it that way. And they are well aware of the power that are contained within numbers and symbols. But why would they risk revealing their plans to cover something on the cover of a magazine, I hear you say? Well, for this too is part of the magic which people like the Rothschilds practice, and they call it lesser magic. The Economist cover, as we're about to see this year, is absolutely abundant with symbology and cryptic messages. And it's always worth our time at this time of year to sit down and try and make sense of it. Now, there's no direct science involved here, and it's very, very subjective. So some of the things that I'm about to go over and our very special guest, they may line up with what you see. They may be absolutely opposed to what you're seeing. But that's when we have to come together, and what we do is we share our different views and opinions, and from there we can formulate that bigger picture. We can see the multi-dimensional messages and meanings that are at play here. But this is nothing that you can do by yourself, folks. Oh, no, no. And on this show, we've almost become infamous at this time of year. I think I received my first email back in October asking if I was going to be getting tonight's special guest onto the show so that we could do tonight's very topic that we're sat here ready to embark on. And that is, of course, my good friend, the NanoGirl. She is back with us. And just wait till you hear the audio that's coming from her. Nano, welcome back.
Hey. Happy holidays. I hoped everybody had a wonderful Christmas, and we're looking forward to a very interesting 2019, I think. I think you said it
Absolutely.
well in your site.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned the website there. And for listeners, I'll drop this in the chat room. I put together a lot of the imagery that we're going to be discussing tonight. I'm going to drop that in the chat room right now. It's over at thekevbakershow.com. And for listeners out there who aren't in the chat room, over at tfrlive.com/chat, all you need to do is go to kevbakershow.com, and on the main menu, I've included a tab called Notes for the KBS listeners. In there, you will find everything we are going to be getting into tonight. And Nano, this cover, some years it's kind of hard to see the cryptic meanings of what's going on. But this year's cover, very striking indeed. And I know even before you get into the cover itself, you want to address something else that's been going on creepy on YouTube with a certain Kevin Spacey, right?
I have to.
It's a must. It really is a must.
He posted this on the 24th, and it's called "Let Me Be Frank." And for people who watched, was it Game of Cards? No, what was it? What was the name of his show?
House of Cards.
House of Cards. Thank you. He played the character Frank Underwood. So, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend a 3-minute of your time is all it's going to take. I thought Kevin Spacey was a good actor. He's a brilliant actor. And let me step back a minute. I am not applauding him. I am not saying this was a good idea. I am saying that the reason I'm bringing up before we get into The Economist is because basically, from my perspective, we are on the other side of the looking glass. And this YouTube, to me, is a piece of that puzzle. It's a piece. It's so over the top, but it's so brilliantly done. And that's the whole point. And when we look at tonight's show and we look at the magazine that we're going to be discussing, to me, this YouTube kind of fits right into that. I mean, it's so easy to get lured back into everything's okay. Yeah. Especially for the Kevin Spacey fans, it's like, well, maybe he didn't really do it. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe we rushed to judgment, blah, 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 blah. But I think the thing that really struck me about this, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I just have to comment on this because, again, it's the kind of thing we're constantly having to use critical thinking, and we're constantly having to stay awake and pay attention to so it doesn't get lost in our consciousness. And so the video opens with him in the kitchen. He's got a Christmas apron with Santa's on it. He's got a Christmas cup. And it opens with him washing his hands in the sink in the kitchen. And it reminded me of Pontius Pilate. And I couldn't get past that. But a couple of comments he made where I think not only was he just talking to us, Kev, he was also talking to the elites. But it opens up with, I know what you want. They tried to separate us. We shared everything, you and I. And he's looking at the camera while he's saying that. And then he says, I told you my deepest, darkest secrets. I showed you exactly what people are capable of. I shocked you with my honesty, but mostly I challenged you and made you think. There are a bunch of comments like that in there. And as I said, it's so completely over the top. I've watched it 5 times. I can't believe, there was a time, I'm old enough to be on the planet long enough to say, there was a time when if somebody had been accused of something that he's been accused of, they would never have done this. Out of respect for the subject, out of respect for themselves, defending themselves and going and handling this in a respectful manner. And we're way past that now. And like Kevin and I were talking before the show, it's very difficult on YouTube now to decide who's telling you the truth and who's lying and who's got a game going. And it is so difficult. And I sometimes don't think even discernment works. It's almost like you have to just continuously research what people are saying, find 4 or 5 sources and realize, is this really true? So anyway, I brought that up because to me, it's like the epitome of the caliber of actors and actresses we're dealing with in the media, we're dealing with in politics, and we're dealing with in Hollywood. That for a long time, we'd grown up having them be people we might have looked up to, icons we respected. And at this point, I think they're showing their true colors. And so anyway, I just had to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, I like to listen to Joe Rogan, and he was kind of saying this was one of the worst performances he had seen from Spacey in years. But I agree with you. I think this was one of his better ones, even if I don't know the full meaning of what he was trying to convey, because I think he was speaking to me, you, on a whole different level as well, Nano, just like we were talking about before the show. And this does fit into what we're going to be going into tonight, because one of the images, it contains the hashtag #MeToo that has been so prominent this year, and we'll get into that as well. And, you know, I do think, you know, Kevin Spacey and what's happening to him, you know, and everything else we're seeing going on right now, what this brings in 2019, I'm not too sure. But the veil, that kind of veneer has certainly slipped, and we're really starting to see what this world's all about now. And it's almost as when we're going through tonight's cover as well, it's as if we're being told that, you know, it's all very matter of fact. You've really analysed some of the articles that we'll get into as well about the things that are just coming our way. And for me, you know, the covers are coming off, and this cover that we're going to be talking about, you know, it used to be really hard work trying to figure out the kind of things that we're talking about, Nano. And don't get me wrong, tonight's, you know, there could be deeper meanings as well. But for me, it's more kind of in your face. It's more here and now. And I'll get your thoughts on that, because the first image we're going to go into, I think, really encapsulates that. And it's one that you added right towards the end. And it's an image that just has black background and the world in 2019, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people had kind of an epiphany on this. It's like, well, does this mean it's the end of the world? What's going to happen? Before I found, when I was doing my research for the show, one of the pieces I always try to include is the calendar. They have a quick, you know, kind of overview of what's going to be coming our way during the year. And on December, this is what they wrote for 2019. Those relieved that the world did not end in 2012, as some interpreted the Mayan calendar to have predicted, hold their breath again. Other seers have penciled in December 2019 for the end of times. So I caught that yesterday, and I thought, I wonder if that's what that particular view represented. There was nothing in the magazine that I found that described it or said, oh, this is what it was. But the other thing that I looked at it is also a curtain, like the curtain before you open for the show, for the real show. So it could also be a curtain. But I kind of like that thought of, because that's what people wondered, if this was quote unquote the end of the world. And so it's in December. If you do have the magazine and you look at their calendar, this is the last thing they write for December. So interesting.
That is quite interesting, you know, because even when the 2012 date was being spoke about before it had come along on the calendar, I remember some people out there, Nano, listening to Coast to Coast and Chris and Cherie and so many other shows, you know, wherever it was, there was researchers saying, yeah, this might be an important date, but think more towards 2018, 2019 times. And we've even been speaking about it on the show here lately, how so many people are feeling, you know, out of whack, out of kilter. The equilibrium might just be off. And we're speculating that that might be to do with the times we're living in. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I know I shared with you a little while ago that I had this thing happen to me in November, early November, where I passed out and I have this severe vertigo. and I still have it. And so I'm maintaining and getting a little bit better by my diet. So I had to give up caffeine, which was the killer, chocolate, which I still cheat on, and salt. And I had to double up and triple up on the water I'm drinking and eat a lot more protein. So I'm controlling it or managing it by changing my whole diet. But literally, that when I passed out, it was like I was on the way to the restroom one evening, like midnight, and then I woke up and I don't even remember that I passed out. I was that dizzy. And it just started happening like I said, last couple of months. It's very strange. So the only way that I can manage it is literally with my diet. I know so many people that have this like vertigo, dizziness thing going on with themselves. I don't know if it's tech. I don't know, is it where the planet is in orbit? We're, traveling so fast. Are we in a place where we're all being affected by it and it's throwing off our equilibrium? And that diet, luckily for us, maybe can help us. I don't know, but yeah.
No, I
That's
think
pretty interesting.
all of that are good shouts, Nano. And obviously, I mean, we can't put our finger on what's going on, but certainly feels like a lot of people are definitely picking up on something. But let's start to get into this cover.
Okay.
And it's one of the most important covers, I think, for a reason. And it's in their very own description here. And it says, the world in 2019 will build on 3 decades of publishing success. This will be the 33rd edition. It will look ahead to the Trump administration's prospects with a new Congress, the reality of Brexit, elections in India, Indonesia, Nigeria, and across Europe, tech disruptions from AI in China, and in brackets it says, could 2019 mark peak Silicon Valley? Space travel 50 years after the moon landing, and the culture 500 years after Leonardo da Vinci. And I think, Nano, with the Vitruvian man that is depicted, it seems to be the most dominating kind of image that is on the cover for me when I first looked at it. The kind of sepia qualities to it kind of takes you back to Da Vinci times. The backward writing as well that we see on there that we get into, something that Da Vinci was very, very much into, and he had his connections to the occult. And just it's almost that you can get that whole kind of Da Vinci feel to it as we go through this tonight.
I couldn't agree with you more. He's actually one of their features inside the magazine, that this is the 500th year anniversary of his death. And the Vitruvian Man, I mean, if you look it up, this is the perfect specimen. The whole point, if you don't look at all the stuff that's attached to him on the cover, just the drawing itself without the VR goggles, it's supposed to be the perfect specimen and in perfect proportion. And that's what this drawing represents. And it's kind of interesting looking at it from that perspective. When you take the perfect human being and then you add all the things that are on it, right? The DNA and the Me Too and, all this kind of stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. Also, the first thing that I did when I got this magazine was hold it up to my mirror. I'm sure I mentioned that. And then I thought, oh my God, we're in the looking glass. And so as I went through to prepare for the show, I've kind of prepared for the show as if I was on the other side of the mirror. That I'm on the side where Alice is on the side, when she went down the dark hole with the rabbit, that we're looking at the world in a very different way. And for me, backwards, and a lot of people are saying that, this doesn't feel right. There's too many crazy things going on. This just doesn't, all that kind of stuff that we probably all kind of hear some of our more aware friends say. And I think that was probably one of the most powerful things about the cover for me, was just this mirror that I am on the other side looking in.
I like that. I do like how you kind of put that, Nano. And of course, I was saying to you how this has really got some occult kind of leanings towards it as well, with the mirror writing, which some refer to as the writings of the devil and very satanic in nature. And of course, we have to bear in mind this is coming from the Rothschilds. And I really do look at them like wizards and warlocks and whatever name you want to put on it, modern day magicians, and they know the power of putting things backwards. And Crowley, I've spoke about him before, Nano. He has the law of reversal. That's something that we see a lot in all the music videos and the modern Hollywood movies. This is something we see a heck of a lot. And one of the examples I've seen today was even Oprah Winfrey, her name, Oprah. And it is a backward spelling of Harpo or Harpo. And that's the studios which she actually worked for. And that in itself is a good example of how, you know, that law of reversal is really, really powerful if you know how you're using it. Now, I'm not sure if Da Vinci was using it in that way, Nano. I can't kind of attest to that. But when I look at Da Vinci as well, the 33rd edition of this cover, and they're really wanting to celebrate that. And when you look at the Vitruvian Man, you have the circle and the square, and that is so important to Freemasons. And if you look at it again, the way I see it when I squint an eye is, man, even as perfect as we are, we're stuck inside that box, NanoGirl. And of course, the box represents the physical body, the physical world. The circle, it represents the soul and the spiritual world. And even Da Vinci himself, he called it Vitruvian Man because it was based on the work of Vitruvius. And Vitruvius is regarded in some lodges as the original first Grand Master of Freemasonry. So right away I see the Da Vinci, but along with that, all of the Masonic connections as well. And again, that adds to the importance of what they're trying to relay here. And we're going to break down all the individual images for people. And I'm like you, I wanted to see it in a mirror image. And for the listeners, you can head over to kevbakershow.com, click the notes for listeners, and you'll see it flipped right there. So where, NanoGirl, with us just a couple of minutes before the break, would you like to leave us before we come back on the other side, and you will take us through your kind of order of the images?
Well, what's interesting is looking at this, and you know, thank you for flipping this for me. To me, the other thing that besides feeling like I was on the other side of the looking glass is, to me, this is the way it should look. For some reason, it feels better to have Trump be looking to my left and Putin looking to my right, and the bear looking to the right as well. I don't know why. It felt like, well, this just feels. And the other thing, I tried to find something from 1902. Like if you look at the letters on top, I thought, is there something with 1902? But I didn't see anything that necessarily had happened that I knew about in 1902. Maybe it's just, do you see what I'm saying? Like if you flip this, it's not really a 2, but you know, but maybe it's a 9102. I don't know. No, I don't know if that's a number 2. Interesting.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, now you've got my head working. Don't do this to my head, Nano.
I know. If you and it equals 3, I don't. Again, 3. Like if you know, added all the letters, the numbers together, you end up like, and you add 1 and 12, 1 and 2 is 3. I don't know. I did try to find something that looked like maybe would have happened in 1902, that they, you know, another secret message or whatever, but I didn't necessarily, there wasn't any big thing that I saw. And maybe it's in the, and then I also did research on the Rothschilds and their magazine and, you know, other covers and things like that, but I didn't see anything that had anything to do with that. I was very disappointed, but I'm sure this means something.
Philip de Rothschild, he was born in 1902. Not sure if that means anything. Not sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah. Now the Fabergé egg, it was produced in 1902.
Yep, there you go.
So there's quite a lot of 1902 references to the Rothschilds, see? See, this is how these things work, ladies and gentlemen.
You're awesome.
The decoding of the world in 2019.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Second part of tonight's very special broadcast with the NanoGirl, aka Sharon. And tonight we're doing our annual decoding of the world in 2019. The cover of the Economist magazine, which is brought to us in no small part by the Rothschild family. As I also threw out there, their editor-in-chief, he is a regular attendee to the Bilderberg meetings, making it not a speculative look at the agenda for the year ahead. It's literally coming to you from the people that know. And I'm so glad I've got Nano here with me tonight. We were saying during the break, weren't we, Sharon, that, you know, two people just isn't enough sometimes. And that's why it's great to do this live with the audience out there as well, because the more different eyes you get looking at this, the different angles, the different things that it could mean, because none of us are in the minds of the Rothschilds or the people who put this together per se, but we certainly need those different opinions, that different outlook to form the bigger picture. And even then, Nano, we can never claim to truly know what's coming in the year ahead, right?
Absolutely. And by the way, I didn't realize this, but the people that put this magazine together, and probably like monthly, they have an intelligence group that works for the Economist. And so what that means is probably like the Gartner group equivalent in the USA, and you have analysts that take like a tech sector, medical sector, bank sector, et cetera, and their one job is to focus on one aspect of what's going on. And that's why they have such amazing information, because they actually have an intelligence group that you can buy reports from, which I didn't realize.
Well, I think they set up, the Rothschild family had the original kind of network of spies across Europe, and this is what enabled them to really do a heist in the London stock market back in the day when the Battle of Waterloo was on. And the Rothschilds, because they had the best spy network in Europe at the time, they got word of who had won the battle early. They told everyone in the stock exchange, they gave them lies, so they started dumping stock. The Rothschilds were able to buy them up for pennies on the pound, you know, really make a killing. And then word came through of who had actually won the battle, and it left the Rothschilds, I can't remember how much they had multiplied their wealth by. But that's the power of information, Nano, and we're living in a big data society now. And I don't think anything's changed. Like you say there, the Rothschilds, they're able to really put out there what's coming in the future because A, they try and steer it that way, but B, and in a big part, because they've got the data, they have that intelligence coming into them, right?
Yeah, they absolutely do. They still own 50% of this magazine. Yeah, I checked that out. So, yeah, absolutely. So with an intelligence team like that, I mean, companies spend money to pay Gartner Group and groups like that to come in and talk about, okay, if I'm going to introduce this product, tell me about the market. Tell me how much I should charge. Tell me who else is my competitor out there, right? And then you're not going blind. So yeah, absolutely. But I assumed that they had lots of people writing, but I didn't realize they probably had a whole Gartner group, which kind of makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So take my hand and let's dive down this rabbit hole, NanoGirl.
Okay.
Where are we going first? What image are we going to start on?
Well, let's start with the Vitruvian Man and what he's holding. And we'll start with the baseball and the marijuana leaf. And so also let's tell the audience what we'd agreed before the show is that I went into the magazine and looked at why the Economist said that they put these images on the cover. And then Kev, my brilliant cohort here, is going to explain what he feels like all this means, which he's way better at than me. So I will come from the point of view of, okay, this is what they said. This is what it represents, according to Inside the Magazine. And then we'll let Kev go down the road. Good stuff.
It sounds good to me, Nano, and I'll let you. Well, do you want me to kick it off then? What I see in this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so on the left-hand side, we see the marijuana leaf in the hand, and we see the baseball. And, a baseball, obviously, a pastime of the American people in particular, ball sports, that's almost as if that's what we used to get up to, one of them anyway, the playing of sport. And now you go over to the other side, and you're looking at the device in one hand with the Q code. And then you've also got the scales. Now, there's a couple of ways you can look at this. You can look at the scales as got, I think if you count the number of people, you've got 4 versus 5 Nano. Now, that could obviously refer to the Supreme Court in America, right? But the scales are also justice. In justice, it's got the device above in the hand above social media, social justice. I mean, we're in an age now of social justice warriors. And that's something that, it might not mean that. However, I think there's a couple of meanings to each of them. Now, you've got the marijuana leaf, which I find interesting because you've got this wide use now of CBD oils over here in the UK even, and all the way to recreational marijuana over in America and Canada, stuff like that. That's a good thing in many ways. There's also another way of looking at it, and it kind of puts us into a passive state, shall we say. It takes us away from that playing of the sports that we see in the hand below to, maybe, being a bit more chilled out, a bit more relaxed, a bit more lackadaisical. And then you come down the arm, and this one's interesting because you've got the DNA. And that, for me, the Vitruvian man, it's almost like you said, it's like the ideal specimen. And I'm not sure if they're marking that for, like, almost the seed vault Nano. Keep a coding of what the original man was like as we move into this age with CRISPR and genetic editing. We just had the embryos that were edited in the womb. Maybe it means transformation into human 2.0. I can see that. And then finally, the Me Too hashtag is on there. And there's always been people said, this Me Too movement feels very controlled. It's almost an agenda behind it. And I do think there is a level to that. And I think now that we're seeing it on the front of the Rothschild cover, I mean, was it an actual tool that has been used to achieve a certain end? And we could even throw in Kevin Spacey, what we were saying at the start of the show about that. I think it's set to continue in 2019, Nano. That's obviously what this is saying. But what do you see in the arms, and what did the Rothschilds attribute this kind of imagery to?
Well, you're absolutely correct on the scales. There was a big article about Kavanaugh's court, right? And the whole mess to get him into the Supreme Court. And of course, they never missed an opportunity to bash Trump. And by the way, if you hate Trump, this is the magazine for you. They never missed an opportunity to bash Trump.
Can I add one thing?
In every single article.
Yeah, I need to add one thing. There's one striking difference with the face between this one and the old Vitruvian man. And it's goggles. They look kind of like steampunk goggles, but I'm going to go for more virtual reality. Yeah.
So basically, the focus of the article on the balance of the court and what happened is more bones of contention between the Democratic and Republican parties. The Democrats feeling freaked out about losing Roe versus Wade. The court being very, very conservative. So it was, just the way that this all happened. So that was why they said they put that on there. The cell phone is about the connection. I guess as of 2018, 50% of the planet is connected one way or another, which I can't remember how many years ago, it was like 20%. So their goal, of course, is to have all of us be connected, right?
And you've got the Internet of Things, you've got all the devices, Nano. You've got you've got Facebook wanting to launch the balloons. You've got even Elon Musk with his constellations of satellites. So yeah, you can only see this like an exponential curve, right?
Yeah, and they count, if somebody got on the computer, like for poor countries, even if you logged onto a computer or you had some kind of contact with tech. Although they did have a little comment in their in their article about keeping it controlled, because let's face it, information could get into the wrong hands and give these poor innocent people the wrong point of view. The marijuana leaf is marijuana's big business.
Huge, Nano. And
Yeah.
I can't believe that the government over here, they must still be making more money criminally by controlling the flow of the drugs in here than they would with tax. That's the only reason. It's a no-brainer from that standpoint. The money they could rake in, the jobs as well, NanoGirl. And, I imagine the first political party who does kind of put that forward, rightly or wrongly, all of the smokers in the UK, they've just created a voting army. They're going to get into power, you know what I'm saying?
It's not just going to be smoking, though. That's another part of this article. Is they're going to put it in our soft drinks. They're going to put it in gummy bears. Is it the TLH or whatever that stuff is?
THC, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to put that in everything.
So what do you think when I said about, almost a dumbing down effect could occur from that?
Yeah.
And I smoke the weed, I smoke it, I'm trying to find other ways of getting into me right now, but that's another story. But, I mean, I also see the fact that it kind of makes you a bit more kind of, what can you do about it? You just rather sit there and eat your munchies kind of attitude. So that's almost good for the elites, right? Because you're not wanting to get out there and do another France right now. No yellow vests over here.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's first of all, they make a ton of money and they just put everybody to sleep. We have a huge drug epidemic over here in the US. I'm sure that's known worldwide. I mean, it's very, very bad, whether it's prescription drugs or heroin or whatever. I mean, in San Francisco, they're just handing it out like candy. Here, have some. Certainly the needles. Well, I'm not even going to say any words about it. I think you guys know what I mean. The baseball, though, which was kind of interesting. I think you're right. It's kind of a pastime, but actually the Major League Baseball league wants to. The Major League Baseball wants to play, and will be coming over to London to play 2 games. With they'll be playing in the London Stadium, and in fact, the name of the article is "Away Run."
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
I just wanted to say that real quick before you say something. The titles of some of the articles was listening to Yoda. Think about, okay, so the name of the baseball article where they're actually going to talk about Major League Baseball will be played in London is called Away Run. Now, do you feel like you're talking to Yoda? MLB reaches first base in Britain. So anyway,
I was gonna try and put on a Yoda voice there, but I just don't have one. It would have sounded ridiculous. Teach you, I will. But anyway.
Exactly. There's so many titles, and I'm like, what does that mean?
That puts something into a whole new context now, because earlier on I went on a little rant. Over here right now, we've had a couple of instances at soccer matches where the horrendous topic of racism has been kind of brought to attention. And over in America, we've had that Colin Kaepernick, or Colin Kaepernick, as I call him.
Kaepernick,
yeah. Him on his knee and that whole thing going on over there. And I honestly, a trend for people in the UK to watch out for in 2019. And Sky News, Sky Sports are pushing this, folks. I think they're wanting some kind of protest, some take the knee thing going on over in this country as well. And that's why today I seen there was a baseball program about America's shame. This was about baseball back, I think it was in the early 1900s, when black players weren't allowed to actually play, and they went off and created their own league. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, here's Sky News again. I mean, we don't even have any interest normally in baseball. It's not even a sport that I know many people are interested in at all over here, Nano. And that's not to knock it. It just didn't come over the Atlantic as well as some of the other stuff. And yet here they are running this documentary. It's just race baiting. But now that I know that there is a Major League Baseball game coming, I can almost see why they're putting this kind of program on now. However, that said, they're going to try and go for a Kaepernick knee type thing in the UK.
You guys can have it.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted you guys to keep. It really is. But moving on, what else have we got in this image?
Okay, so let's talk about Me Too.
Yes.
Me Too Part 2. And are you there?
I'm here.
Hello?
I am here.
Okay.
You'll get used to me not being able to function on this new Skype, NanoGirl. I'm crap at it. I hate the new Skype. It's just great that you're sounding so good. It's just such a shame Skype is so crap. But yes, I'm here. Me too. Not literally, but yes, me too.
Okay, so there's going to be a backlash. And I know I talked about this earlier when I was on one of your other shows, I think. But backlash one, men will avoid female colleagues. There's going to be a bunch of classes you men are going to have to take on, how to handle this better, blah, blah, blah. And there's going to be Me Too fatigue, according to this article. But I don't doubt that there will be backlash. I don't think that it's going to get us I don't think it's going to get women where they wanted to go. We've tried this how many times in the 60s? And then we went through this with the Clarence Thomas situation, and we had to have sensitivity classes, blah, 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 blah. In fact, there's some law in England where they have to show how much they're paying everyone, right? Isn't that supposed to happen in 2019?
Yeah, I think if it's not already happening, then yeah.
So that's,
don't get me wrong. I think everyone should be paid an equal wage.
Right.
That's just a no-brainer,
Right. But I'm just saying, I think that there's going to be a backlash, and I think whenever you force anybody, and I don't care what sex you are, who you are, to think a certain way, because you feel like you've been put off or put out or whatever it is, you're really going down the wrong road. And, even Faith Popcorn was talking about anger rooms for guys, separate floors for men. They don't have to work with women anymore and all this stuff. And to me, it's so tragic. I love working with guys. It's, what can I say? Oh, anyway.
No, it sounds a bit weird, right? But I can actually see that scenario. Absolutely. I've said before, many a time working, in retail, you just think you're doing the right thing by offering somebody who can't carry their bags, a young lady, an old woman, whoever, and you get treated as if you're some kind of rabid, misogynist sexist, you know what I mean? So, and that was a few years ago, and you're actually just trying to do, maybe a bit old-fashioned in my mind, you try to be a nice guy, but yeah, I absolutely can see that, and I sometimes joke, that the white heterosexual male, if we're not really, really careful, could go the same way as the dodo sometime very, very soon, because definitely things are changing. And yet, I can imagine there probably is a climate, especially in offices and things, Nano. You'll be able to talk about the tech industry, but imagine in offices as well, things that used to be considered just friendly banter. And I'm sure so many people still enjoy that, yet just one person there might feel offended, and everyone's probably speaking in hushed tones, probably covering their mouth in case camera sees what they're saying. It's really weird where this is all going.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I work in such an intense place right now. I work in mergers and acquisitions that nobody's allowed to say anything because your NDA has an NDA. So nobody's talking. Yeah. Everybody's careful because you don't want to say anything you're not supposed to say anyway. So it's kind of funny. But
walking about with gags on.
Yeah, it's like. But anyway, I don't know. I think this goes for all of the crap they're trying to shove down our throats right now. All the politics, all of any of it, the Pelosi stuff, all of it. The more they throw it, the more they bash Trump. And granted, is he the best guy ever? No, probably not. But my God, is he worse than the guy from Korea or China? And if you're reading this magazine, they must have bashed him like 20 times. It's like, well, I don't see he's worse than everybody else. You know, he's just him. So anyway.
And you know, that this kind of Me Too movement, for me, it's kind of opened the eyes of people who maybe, I mean, I know people listening to this show, we've looked at Hollywood and the stuff that goes on beyond the surface, Nano, but it's almost been, you know, a rude awakening for the general public to what the true face of Hollywood's like, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if we go back to the Kevin Spacey YouTube, I mean, really, I mean, all you have to do is spend 3 minutes of your life watching that and think to yourself, good grief. Here's what I'd like to see with the Hollywood people. I am so disgusted with them that I would just like them never to be spokespeople ever again. We're probably not going to be able to have that happen, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
You know,
no,
I just want them to either act or go away.
Yeah.
We don't. Yeah.
And I think that's why people have been so affected by all of this, because these people have become so idolized. They're so central to, you know, young people growing up, and they carry so much power, rightly or wrongly. You know, people truly idolize them.
And I don't really think it's going to go away.
Nope.
I'm pretty sure it's going to stay. I mean, do you know how many hits he had on his site and he posted it on the 24th? 7 million.
Yeah, I'm looking at his video right now, and
plus change.
One of them, yeah, I think the one on his own channel's got 8.7 million views.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7.8, 3 days. Yeah. Creepy, man. It's creepy. But what's next then, Nano? What's next? Because I know we could do a 5-hour show on this, and we're barely into it.
I know you could. Okay, so we'll kind of gather around. So speaking of Hollywood actresses, there's, of course, Miss Angelina Jolie. And in the magazine, there's a very special section dedicated for her to tell us how we should be measuring our humanity to refugees. And they have, the Economist has this big movement of nationalists versus globalism. And she has her speech tucked away in their little program, and they launched it in 2018, the Economist did. And so it's all about, hey, kids, you know, you need to be a better human. You need to be more conscious about the planet. It's called Open Future, Moving Beyond Nationalism. Again, I was barfing. And it's just like, you guys, you gotta be kidding me here. And so their whole point is, by being more of a human being and paying more attention to climate, you know, the climate change, which I think is BS, and all this, you know, the planet, we're going to be preventing nuclear war, stop climate change, and regulate disruptive technologies. That's their goal. Yeah. So let me just read this one little paragraph here. It does not mean establishing a global government or abolishing all cultural, religious, national differences. I, the citizen, can be loyal at one and at the same time to several identities, to my family, my village, my profession, my country, and also to my planet, the whole human species. So what I know. And so I know it's barfalicious. And so Angelina Jolie's little thing here is how to alleviate the refugee crisis. Our response to the plight of the refugees in the coming year will be the measure of our humanity, writes Angelina Jolie, actor and special envoy of the UN.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes, and of course it's called Open Future, a global conversation.
Wow. Wow. And she epitomizes the good little globalist that they roll out at these big kind of galas and anytime there's a crisis in the world. And of course, this is one of the images that comes with backward mirror writing. Mona Angelina And of course, it's very much like the Mona Lisa there. But the aardvark, next to it, is that related to that, or is that another story, Nano?
It's an anteater.
Yeah, the anteater. What's the anteater doing there?
The anteater is one of our species, endangered species. It's actually a pangolin.
Ah.
So the whole point of this is we have a lot of endangered species on the planet, which again, to me, smacks of Agenda 21.
And the hypocrisy of the Rothschilds. You think of some of their, their agendas and the games they've got up to and the things they've done to the planet, along with the other bloodline families throughout the ages. And they sing and dance about extinction of different species. My word, that just stinks. It really does, Nano. It stinks. And again, this is like almost this backward magic where they hide things in plain sight. They know they're responsible, but, put the guilt trip on us, why don't you?
Well, they did.
Well,
that's for all you elephant hunters, you whale people, you anteater killer people. Shame on you.
Well, talking of hunters, we have got the KBS hunter in the green room.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Number 2, right here on the Kev Baker Show on Truth Frequency Radio Network, www.tfrlive.com. Don't forget, the Kev Baker Show is proudly sponsored by Get the Tea over at getthetea.com. We had Ronnie McMullen on just last week. You can catch that in the archive and get it over on the YouTube channel. I urge you to check that out because we put on a brilliant show about frequency, the changes the world is going through right now, the state of flux that we even brought up on tonight's show as well. So I urge you to catch that and go and check out all the products over at getthetea.com. So I've got NanoGirl with me, and in a real throwback to the original days of KBS, guess who was in the green room, chilling out, kicking back, listening to our annual decoding of the world in 2019. It's the man himself, Johnny Whistles. How you doing, man?
Doing fine, Kev. Thanks very much. And what an honour to have Nano back tonight, Kev. It's absolutely fantastic. Haven't heard from her from ages. I know that you spoke to yourself, but it's great to have her on the show again.
Oh, it's that audio as well, for the last number of shows that we've done via telephone. And, telephone's great. At the time, you get that connection. Nothing is lost. The show goes out there. The information is perfectly legitimate. It's just as good. However, Nano, speaking to you tonight on this new setup, absolutely brilliant. And like I was saying to you, we can't be letting this go to waste. We can't let dust be gathering on the new headset and everything. So we'll need to be organising a lot more shows in 2019, right? Right? Hopefully, fingers crossed.
I would love that. I've missed the three of us. I missed our shows. They were so fun. I was lucky enough to have a job. I could leave early 1 day a week. And so that was it was really, really cool. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of crazy. And yeah, I did get a new system. This is a desktop and a new headset. So, because you were gracious enough to let me come on with the phone. So it's I feel like I'm back on the radio now.
Absolutely. And of course, I trained you up as a quantum ninja. You almost infiltrated the corridors of D-Wave, but you're back with us now, and I'm glad to have rescued you from the corridors of power there, Nano.
I was trying to figure out how to volunteer for them.
No. Of course, see, we don't just talk about things like the D-Wave on here. We literally have people that close to getting a job with them. And you never know in the future, Nano. I've got my chicken foot out. I don't really have a chicken foot, in case people out there think I'm wearing a chicken foot that I'll use for magical spells or anything. But I have got everything crossed. And like I said to you, I think there's almost something written in the stars. NanoGirl and D-Wave one day. But back to tonight's topic.
Yeah.
We're getting into the Economist 2019 cover. One that is usually, and it didn't let us down this year, is replete with imagery that we can try and make sense of for the year ahead. We finished up with Angelina Jolie before the break, and now we're going to move on to one of the other images at the bottom. This is of a lady that I had no idea about. It's also got the ballot boxes for, I believe, South Africa and Pakistan, India, maybe. What's going on in this image, NanoGirl?
Yeah, so one of the themes of the magazine, which I found quite surprising considering, again, that it comes from the Rothschilds, two of the themes is democracy. Tremendous amount of articles about democracy, and it's a good thing, and let's fight for it, and let's keep it, and the world seems to be, going towards democracy. Let's keep the ones we have. Let's open the doors for others, and voting. Again, another shock. It's like you just wouldn't expect that in their magazine. But again, then I am on the other side of the looking glass. The woman artist is a Italian artist, and I am going to butcher her name. It's Artemisia. So I'm not even going to say it. But anyway, it's 400 years old. It was painted at a time when women didn't get to do art. And so this is a self-portrait that she painted of herself. And it will be displayed in 2019. So I guess right now they're doing a renovation on it. Yes, you are correct. Those are the voting boxes for South Africa and Nigeria. There's going to be two very important elections in 2019. And from what I could understand, and in a nutshell, is that the South Africans have a little bit more hope in their election. They did like the guy that they elected, but they've got some really serious issues because the luster is worn off. Whereas the people in Nigeria, it's kind of like, well, this person's not good and that person's not. It's the lesser two evils kind of thing. But there's still very, very important elections coming up. So you're absolutely correct. And speaking of that, we could zoom up to the Pinocchio one. This also, let me find my note, democracy bounces back. You would never guess that that's what that stands for. I thought it was George Bush. Shrub.
I think it could be absolutely any politician that you see or any news outlet that you see as well. It would be hard to put a finger on it, wouldn't it?
Well, Pinocchio was a puppet.
And it's interesting, I think we also maybe need to kind of step back and look bigger at this because it's right beside Vladimir Putin as well. It's kind of tucked right in behind him. So, of course, we've had the whole kind of talk this year about Russian meddling, about, fake news, all of that stuff. And, of course, my beloved, wonderful Vladimir Putin is always to blame for that, right? So I wonder if maybe that's what they're hinting at there as well. Or are they hinting at that everything they say about Putin is lies? Their nose grows every time they speak about him because that's what really should happen. Isn't that right, Whistles?
Well, he is the ultimate bad man, Kev, because everything just now gets blamed on Putin. So I wouldn't put it past me, Kev. I don't know if you have already spoke about the pelican, Kev, have you?
No, we haven't covered the pelican or the stork. Or whatever.
It's the stork, yeah.
It's actually the stork. But before we leave Putin, I wanted to mention that the reason he's there, if you look at Putin's pipelines, his pipeline is going to start working this year, right? It's a pipeline to, is it China and a couple of other countries? Is one Turkey?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is a big thing. And the other reason he is on the cover is because his people are starting to see him not so much as a world stage superstar, but more somebody now who has to focus on his own country's issues. Like, paychecks and money and retirements and, how you're going to handle the poor and food and all this kind of stuff. So he's stepped off the world stage per se of like sort of being glorified. Now I'm talking about within Russia and according to The Economist, and he's going to need to focus more on his own country as well as now opening this pipeline, which is going to be open later the day. But yeah, so I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought that was extremely important. That is a very different view on Putin, on what he's going to be focusing on this year.
And it's
And
always
go ahead.
hard, isn't it, to know what the truth about Putin is, because short of going to the Russian websites, and even then you're relying on a translation. Who knows how accurate that is? And even if you were Russian yourself, there's probably that much misinfo and disinfo and real info out there, like any of the characters in the West as well. It's hard to know what these players are truly like, but, if the Economist are telling us that Russia need to, Putin needs to be thinking about taking care of things at home, like Nano was saying there, perhaps we should be watching for some of these economic hitmen that go into countries, because I'm sure if Putin has got things to deal with in the upcoming year, you can bet your bottom dollar the Rothschilds have probably put some money behind it. So who knows? That's a very interesting one. And I'm sure we could come back to that one, because it's going to feature when we come to another prominent image on there. But Johnny, you brought up the stork, right? And I'm going to scroll down to it. And I've got these on a web page for our listeners to see at kevbakershow.com/notes-for-KBS-listeners. Okay, or you can go to the homepage. It's on the top menu bar. But what we see is like Johnny says, a stork in flight. We've got a bag in its mouth, and it's got the barcode on it. So, Johnny, what do you make of this one, man?
Oh, that was the thing. It was a barcode, Kev. Is that every kid is going to be chipped now? Is that the way it's going to go? Because, we've heard it all before, Kev. We see them start putting them in people's hands now to be able to open doors and put their computer on in the workplace. So, is this where it's going to go, Kev, that babies will just have to be chipped? That's where it is.
Right now, I would argue that we're already barcoded from birth, because I think, the minute they put one of those little bracelets round the ankle, I think that's you got a barcode assigned to your NHS record anyway. But yeah, are we going to be chipped? And Nano, what was the kind of reasoning that was given in the article for this image?
You guys are right that sequences with consequences. A new genetic screening technique marks a toddler's step towards designer babies. Yep.
There you go, whistles.
Yep. You nailed that one.
And that code, of course, that like we've seen recently, people say it's 50-50 if the story's true, Nano, but whether it's true or not, the technology's here now to edit the embryos in the womb, right? And it's designer baby time.
That's what it said. In 2019, those with cash to do so will have an opportunity to give their offspring a greater chance of living a long and healthy life.
Wow.
Bum-ba-dum.
Yeah, it's not very vague this year, folks.
No, they said that they were going to be more bold. That was one of the things they said when they talked about how they did last year, they said that they weren't bold enough. Last year's was just plain creepy. I remember I said the word creepy about 20 times doing last year's overview, because the whole thing creeped me out. Remember the USA got the frowny face from the Rothschilds? We got the big, got the frowny face. And we had in some ways, we got our butts kicked, fires, all kinds of weather catastrophes over here. Man, it's not been easy. So this year, they're out there. We're just but it's kind of subtle. It's still, the magazine is still subtle. It's sort of subtle. It's kind of interesting.
But it's all part of the magic, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so
just lull you in.
Where are we going next, Nano? Should we go to, I said we would come back to Vladimir Putin, and one of the major things I said, the Vitruvian Man, is something that jumped out at me. But the next thing that I found very ominous, and I don't say that just to be fearful. I know people say I'm the fear porn producer that takes to YouTube and things, but 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, Nano. And they're right next to Vladimir Putin. They're standing in his side of the camp, so to speak. We've got the 4 horsemen, which white, it means conquest, pestilence, can mean the coming Antichrist. We've got the red horse and death.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got the red horse, which is war, the black horse for famine, and the pale horse for death. So, your thoughts on this? And, what did the Economist say they included it for? That's what I'm really wanting to hear, because I've not read these articles yet.
Yeah. So the Economist said that the catastrophic scenarios, 3 ways things can go horribly wrong with Brexit.
We'll lose our Netflix when we go on holiday. I can't cope. Tell me it isn't so.
I know, that's okay. You'll just miss the Obamas and their crap in there. Okay. So the first is that Britain falls out of the European Union without a deal. That is, the EU decides to treat Britain as a third country without any cooperative agreements to facilitate trade. That's number 1. Number 2, second is that Britain has a snap general election with Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party wins. Well, didn't they just do that with her? Didn't we just have a snap election about, a month ago? 3 weeks ago?
They didn't even have it in the end, I don't think. Well, I think she passed a vote of confidence, but they were even laughing about it when they were talking about it. And, I always see it as all theatre anyway, Nano, like we were saying before the show. And even if they'd got rid of her in that vote, I mean, they would only have rolled out another pre-approved puppet from the Rothschilds. So, like you were saying earlier on, they're on about democracy in this edition as well. Well, what a farce that is when they're pushing for a second vote just because they never got what they wanted the first time.
Well, that's number 3. The third is that Parliament decides to hold another referendum. Most Remainers and EU officials would jump for joy, but it would further confuse the situation. So there's a picture of her in her little British car and a big vulture behind her, and she's heading up the road to the apocalypse. And then the other thing that the Economist magazine, remember Mad Magazine, where you had all the little articles in between articles? Remember those?
Yeah. Spy
versus spy. Well, they have a lot of that in this too. Supermarkets might find it impossible to get fresh food. That's so. It's about as vague as that, but I mean, there she is driving her car right into the apocalypse of the 4 horsemen. There you go. That's what they say this is here for.
Wow.
So, I mean, if you saw this cover and you didn't look for this, it took me a while to find it, and I would have thought that was pretty obscure. I wouldn't have necessarily have thought that would be worth putting that there over Brexit. Is it really that dark?
Well, they tried to convince us it is. They called it Project Fear in the build-up to the actual original vote. And I still can't believe that we got the will of the people and we voted to leave. But, of course, we never got what we voted for. And whether we get anything at all, who knows? I mean, like I say, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that they weren't going to be happy at us leaving. Financially, the money that we pour into the EU alone, besides the fact it's been a project in the making since the Nazi times, and the Rothschilds and the royal families and everything else are highly invested into it. The money alone, they just can't afford to let us leave. And then if we do leave, how many other countries that are sitting on the brink right now, they get the same idea. Well, if the UK can do it, we can do it too. Symbolically, even us leaving, it could be too much for them to really take a hit on.
Well, yeah, and again, it's the whole globalism versus nationalism. Yeah. It's like clear across the planet. All of the people in so many countries are like, we don't want this. We want our country. We love the fact that we're French or American or German or Swedish or whatever.
You better include Scottish or Johnny Whistles will be coming after you with a claymore.
And the people from Scotland. Yeah, exactly. And exactly. And so we don't want it. Okay. We don't want it. And you can tell us we're hateful, warmongering, whatever. And we don't care. And there's even a comment in here that the stupidest people in America voted for Trump. Come out and say that. The less educated people voted for Trump.
Okay, so you've mentioned Trump there. Let's go to that one next, because they've got an image of Trump. And
pick a article.
Yeah, I know. all throughout the year.
Well,
They've been writing about
basically,
him.
and I remember them saying this last year, but they're saying it again this year. This is his big year. This is the year that could make or break him. This is the year that'll define his presidency. This is the year where hopefully we stop seeing him be a buffoon. This is,
So reading between the lines, that means we failed last year, so this year we're going to attempt to bring him down again, right?
Bingo.
Yeah, and there's also something about the symbol, and I think it was Vigilant Citizen that I read this in. I hadn't noticed it until I seen this. But when you look at it on the cover, it's directly opposite the facial recognition one, which we'll get into next, hopefully. But
Yeah.
I think they're connected somehow, like I said to you before the show. I don't know how. I think they are connected, though. And then if we look at the Trump one in particular, what we actually see is a box, a flag-shaped, a rectangle box. And if you look closely, it's like an upside-down, back-to-front American flag. You'll see the bit that usually has the stars down in the bottom left-hand corner. Your mind already makes the stripes because you see a couple of the stripes in the image, and our mind races to make things in our subconscious. So I think subconsciously we're all seeing an American flag there, even if we don't realize it. It's upside down, it's in distress. And of course, it's really the elites that appear to be in distress throughout Trump's time in office. I'm no fan of Trump, by the way. I don't hide that fact. I don't trust any of them. But, you know, he certainly seems to be a thorn in their side.
I kind of enjoy the fact that he's a thorn in their side. I enjoy the fact that people are apoplectic. I enjoy the fact that they refuse to listen to us. They still refuse. There's so many of us out here who are still saying, you guys are not awake. You keep wanting to take us back to Obama time because I think they all think that was a great time. Well, not for everybody here. Okay. Now, a lot of us were pretty miserable, and we don't want a fascist government. So they're still not listening. And so if nothing else, the guy's out there causing trouble. And part of me goes, ha, ha, ha. Being a contrarian and being someone who feels like they don't have a voice anyway.
I agree with you on that one. Yeah, exactly. The entertainment value, even if we find out it's all WWE style scripted, who cares? It's been entertaining. It really, really has. But facial recognition then, Nano? What's this one all about? It's kind of self-explanatory, I know.
It pretty is, but it's the title is Walking Barcodes. The face is becoming machine readable. And no hiding place. The implications are worrying. Well, yeah, but again, it's like, yeah, duh, but you guys are helping pay for it. In America, for example, Major League Baseball will start allowing fans to validate their tickets and enter stadiums via a scan of their face rather than a paper stub. Singapore's newest mega mall will use the technology to track shoppers and recommend deals to them. Let's see, where did we see that? Oh yeah, sci-fi. So yeah, it's I don't know the connection. You're right though, when you look at both Trump and the facial recognition thing, it does look very, very similar. But one thing I did mention that if the American flag is upside down, and today and yesterday I saw 2 American flags that are half mast.
You know, I hate to say this, but it's almost as if they're hinting at Trump being subhuman, or, you know, because they've got the dimensions of the facial recognition. You see one of them going straight up, whereas opposed on Trump's one, it goes right up at an angle. And I'm sure if you kind of knew kind of the lineage that humanity's taken, this probably goes back to Neanderthal man or something like that. You know, it could be a hint to the fact that they call him so right-wing. You hear people saying he's a Nazi, right? And they had the whole eugenics program. They used to measure faces, stuff like that. Who knows, Nano? Maybe I read too much into these things. I don't know.
Well, you know, if you go back to the funeral for Bush, and you had all the presidents sitting in the front row, and then when Trump comes in, everybody just about gagged. They should have had a barf bag in their seat. Everybody had the gag reflex going on. And he doesn't look like them. He doesn't look like the rest of them. I'm sure he is probably on some level connected to, you know, all the people that run things, or that he wouldn't even be there. And again, I'm not not defending him. It sounds like I am, but I mean, it's just, it's it's just, why so much vitriol? I've just never seen anything like it, and I'm sick of it.
But, you know,
We're
you're right
never
in a
going to
way.
be able to move forward.
You're right. You know, you think about looking at them, and even Obama when he came into office, and Johnny, you know, Obama, he was like kind of, well, I'm not saying he was a bodybuilder or anything, but he had a bit of a build about him, right? He had a bit of a presence. And now, 8 years on, 10 years on, now you look at him, and look at Clinton sat there, you look at all the rest of them. It literally looks like, and I'm not saying this, you know, I'm not, but think about it, it literally looks like there's something sucking the life out of them, dude. It's like there's some parasite is literally sucking them to death.
Kev, the job that they got, do you know, there's nothing in the world that would actually make me take their job. As you say, Obama, he went from being actually an okay-looking guy to a disheveled-looking man. Trump, on the other hand,
He's a big build of a boy, you know. He's got it all he's still rocking it. He still fills that big jacket, man.
Well, that's it, Kev. But the thing about Trump is, you know, we spoke about this, Kev, before he even got the job as president. And I can remember asking Joe Joseph, I says, why? Because I have never, ever seen this before. The amount of hatred for a man who is running for presidency. Never, ever in my life have I seen hatred so much. And as Nano says, it is true. I don't know why it is. I really don't know why. Maybe he's just not part of this group, Kev.
Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. You know, I'm sure we could all have our own say on that until the cows come home. Me personally, I don't trust any of them. Is he as bad as the rest of them that I've had in my lifetime? Not in the face of it, absolutely not. You know, we'll sit and see what comes at the end of his tenure, as we will do with all of them. But so far, he certainly doesn't compare to any of the ones I can remember. Is that why they go after him so much? Or, like people say, is he part of it?
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Kev Baker, and this has been an amazing episode of the Kev Baker Show right here on tfrlive.com. Don't forget, check out all of the shows over at the archive. Over 1,000 shows in there. Feel free to sign up for a subscription on my archive page. That helps me continue, helps the network continue to grow as well. Or any of your favourite hosts on the network. So with that said, let me get back to Johnny Whistles and the NanoGirl. Tonight it's been the annual decoding of the creepy Rothschilds' Economist, the World for 2019 cover. Something that we do every year. And this year it feels a little different, NanoGirl. It feels a lot more in your face, like we've been saying. We've got a couple of more images we can get into, but I really want to, before the end of the show, get your overall feeling of what you came away from, you know, kind of encapsulate it all. But what image would you like to kind of focus in on or zero in on now?
Let's talk about Walt Whitman. That is who the older man is with the hat.
I'm glad you said that. I had no idea.
Yeah. Another interesting character, another anniversary, born May 31st, 2019. This is his 200th year birthday anniversary. Walt Whitman lived through the Civil War. I guess he was born in, Anyway, and he was pro-nationalist, pro-democracy, but not a big fan of religion. Now, I bring that up, the last part, because there was an article about millennials versus baby boomers and how they are the least religious group in America. And that was another theme in The Economist, how we're becoming less religious. Now, we can blame some of it on the scandals.
I've seen articles on this as well, Nano. Yeah. This is something that is quite widespread now, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. I didn't realize they weren't. You know, so again, interesting that it's in their magazine. So, of course, I might be a little bit skeptical of it. But unfortunately, our institutions have not cleaned themselves up, you know. And I know I've had some pretty lively discussions with people at work about the Catholic Church and how they are continuing to lie and not clean up the real issues. I know there's been things that are happening in other churches. Joe Rogan had an interesting show about Joel Skousen and a couple of other, is that his name? Anyway, the guy that
Joel
that has
Olsen,
the
I think it was, wasn't
Joel
it?
Olsen, the
Yeah.
mega $1 million church.
Don't want to throw poor Joel Skousen under the bus there, you know. Joel.
Yeah, sorry, I meant Joel. Yeah, Joel. Sorry, Joel Olstein. Yeah,
That's the
it.
one.
And yeah, and you know, he does deliver a very positive message. He does. 30 minutes, you leave feeling really, really good, but it's distorted everything, quote unquote, that religion is quote unquote supposed to be. So I kind of felt like they threw Walt in there for a couple of reasons. He had, and then of course this comment about Civil War. And during the break, you and I and Johnny Whistles were talking about, you know, was Trump thrown in the mix to help create a lot more friction with everybody in the country and help create some kind of civil war? Because if they go after this guy next year, the Democratic Congress goes after him and impeaches him, there's going to be some pretty angry people in America. The ones that didn't go to college and vote for him, those people.
No,
The
absolutely, and
deplorables.
that's why I was saying to you that it kind of puts me in a catch-22, right? Because
Yeah.
if they go after him, then that should signify that he isn't one of them. But at the same time, we know they want chaos to bring about their final plans to really kind of pull things together. And you can make a case for Trump. He's been the most divisive character that's been in the office the whole time I've been there. I've been alive. You're in America. You can speak to this more than me. He is different, but, you know, he'd be the perfect player, if you like, to set the scene, to get people at each other's throats ready for a civil war, to describe it that way. So that's why, for me, you know, I'm so on the fence with him. I don't want to lean either way because, like I shared with you, Nano, Johnny, I can make a case good or bad, and I have to hope. The optimist in me wants him to be a good guy. It really does, but time will tell.
But if you think about it, if I were writing a history book and if we do erupt into some kind of civil war, you can go back to Clinton, the Bushes, and Obama, and this was all a setup. This was all that primed us, right? From 9/11 to stuff that the Clintons did and Obama's and all this kind of stuff. It's all been setting us up so that enough of us in America woke up and said, wait a minute, we don't want a fascist nation. You know, we don't want to go down this road. We don't want to be a globalist place. We want to be a nationalist place. We want to defend our country and defend our borders. And there's a lot of people that feel that way. So I'm just saying we've been set up. So maybe he's the, the acid in the, I don't know, in the stew or something or whatever that kind of blows it up. But it's all been set up.
Yep.
So we were either going to get another Obama or another Bush in there, or we were going to get somebody to stir the pot. So, yeah,
It's like
you could go either way.
It's like we were saying about Brexit, Nano, right? In the end of the day, getting rid of Theresa May, it would only have been window dressing. You know, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, because they would have to bring forward the same agenda. And I know that sounds really pessimistic, and people will say, well, what's the point in voting then, Kev? Well, the fact that they're trying to make us to vote again to get the result they want really backs my case up that there really is no point in voting. And that sounds really bad, I know, but it's like Nano says, everything's set up. These people think not decades, but sometimes hundreds of years in advance when it comes to these bigger plans. These wheels within wheels, these magical spells that, make no mistake about it, people like the Rothschilds are into. It might seem way out there to say that kind of thing, but even all of the magic imagery that we're seeing, you know, from TV shows to all the movies, Harry Potter onwards, this is all revelation of the method, part of these lesser magical spells that they cast on us. Now, Nano, I know Johnny Whistles wants to bring one up here that was of very... You know, I was quite keen to get into this one as well. I had to really use the mirror image to see what this was talking about. And this is the New Horizons, Johnny. Well, let's talk about this one, man. You picked this one out. What do you think about this?
Well, it was kind of a weird to see that one in there, Kev, but thinking what's just going to happen with the New Horizons. Now, if you can remember, that was sent out in 2015, and it sent back the most amazing pictures of Pluto. Now, it's travelling, Kev, at 30,000 miles an hour, and it's now continue onward, and it's about to deliver a fantastic New Year gift to us all, because on the 1st of January, it's going to meet up with this object that is out in the Kuiper Belt, and it's called Ultima Thule. It's an object that's 1 billion miles beyond Pluto and 4.1 billion miles from Earth. Now, it'll probably take to 2nd of January, Kev, before we get any images. But this thing is going to be even closer than what it was to Pluto when it takes these pictures. So I'm dying to see what this object is and why they are so interested in it.
Well, the reason I'm kind of giggling, it's one of those nervous giggles, because when I seen it and I hadn't done the mirror image of this, it looked to me like the word Thule. And I thought, surely not. And like you described there, Johnny, it's this object. And Thule, you can look at the Thule Society, and that's something that was very, very connected with the Nazis. There's also Thule Island down at the Falklands as well. That's where you can throw the woo into the whole Falkland War and what they were actually fighting over. Was it something to do with the black goo around Thule? So I find the naming of that really interesting, Johnny. I really, really do. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's going on with that. Absolutely. And Nano, what did they say in the article about the New Horizons?
Johnny Whistles nailed it. That's
Bang
it.
on,
That's
see?
exactly correct.
Johnny, is it because you're drawing on your Templar knowledge here? You know?
No. Actually, I've been keeping an eye on it because it's live on YouTube, Kevin. You can actually subscribe to the channel and see the actual arrival on time itself.
Wow.
It's amazing.
You know what else I find quite interesting about that NanoGirl? We were saying how this is the 33rd cover, very Masonic number. You look at all of the NASA missions, space missions, and very Masonic kind of symbology, some of the numbers involved, some of the names of the missions and things. And Thule Island, you know, Thule Island, this Ultima Thule, that's why I find that fits in with the rest of what's going on in this cover perfectly. That kind of Masonic feel to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I'm counting on you to kind of bring that kind of information in, because I had not heard of it. In fact, I had to go find it in the magazine because it looked like it did look like a satellite first, and then but the bottom part looks like some kind of war cannon, or I thought, well, is that like something for? Then it said New Horizons, so I found it in the magazine, but I had not heard of it before.
Well, here we go, Nano. Here we go. The Thule Society, Thule Gesellschaft, originally and it's a really long German name there, was a German occultist group founded in Munich right after World War I, named after a mythical northern country in Greek legend. And the society is notable chiefly as the organization that sponsored Deutsche Partei, which was later recognized by Adolf Hitler, or reorganized by Adolf Hitler, into the National Socialist German Workers' Party. So yes, this Thule Society, very, very infamous throughout history. Interesting. And that, of course, the swastika, you know, it actually is basically taken from their symbol. I'll drop that into the chat so Nano and Johnny Whistles can find it. But folks, just Google it. Don't take my word for anything. Thule. Google that. There you go, Nano.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yes.
Well, I consider that one of the more positive things that are going on, though.
I
That
like the
seemed pretty
space
cool to
missions.
me.
We all like the space missions on here. That's what the three of us,
Yeah.
we used to love getting into the tech, all that kind of stuff as well. But is there any other images you want to drill down on before you give your final kind of synopsis, your kind of analysis on what's going on, according to Nano?
Well, the elephant, of course, I'll go through them kind of quickly. The elephant represents a big election in India this year. And there was an interesting article for Struggle for India's Soul. And then that's why you see Gandhi, because this is like 150th birth date for him. So 150 years ago, he was born, October 2nd, 2019. That's why he's there. Very interesting. I think is that Mount Fuji? That's for Japan. And what that represents is the government of Japan is dying to have more tourists come to the country. And the citizens are really not so excited about that. And especially because they're going to be having a couple of main events, and one of them is the Summer Olympics in 2020. And so they're trying to figure out places for build places for people to stay, but they want people to come back, and they want people to come and visit and not just come for the main events, right? Whereas it kind of cracked me up, and the citizens are like, nah, we really don't want them here, but thanks. And then you had, of course, everybody's heading back to the moon, that's Da Vinci's original kind of drawing, and then going back to the moon, and different countries are headed back to the moon, and some people would say for the first time, but
really irks me that, Da Vinci 500 year ago, over 500 year ago, picturing us going to the moon, picturing a craft take us there, and here we are over 500 years later. And you're right, Nano, have we been there? Who honestly knows? And the fact we're only just going back now, it's a disgrace. It truly is.
The frustrating thing about this is the whole space thing, right? So Trump now has his space force, which we'll add to the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, blah, 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 blah. And then you have all this interest, this renewed interest in UFOs. And then we got the Corey Good crap going on, versus everybody else. And all this kind of stuff coming back again. And I find that very interesting. And there was a prediction in the magazine, which we'll have to come back and do it another time, like you said. There's a 3%, 3% chance that we'd actually see an alien, according to The Economist. That was one of their predictions. Like there's a 35%.
I'll take those odds, I'll tell you, because there was no percentage ever. So 3% is good for me.
Yeah.
Where did they get that from?
They do an alien poll.
Yeah, there you go.
It makes you laugh, doesn't it?
It does. And they did a bunch of other predictions, like 35% President Donald Trump impeached by the House. So here's the alien. Sorry, 5% extraterrestrial life is discovered.
Wow.
20%, The Lion King starring Beyonce is the highest grossing film of 2019. Another theme of this magazine was all the regurgitated movies that they're doing. I say regurgitated because a lot of them suck.
It feels
like Mary Poppins is a bomb.
It's like music now as well. I mean, I'm no musician, but it's almost as if music's going backwards. You listen to music from the 80s and some of the 90s, and it was real tunes, right? And now it's just repetitive, and half the time you can't make out what they're saying. When you can, it's obscene. And I don't know what's happening there. And like you say, the movies, nobody's really coming up with new ideas. It's all remakes of Stephen King stuff, or Steven Spielberg, a remake of this or that. I don't get it.
It's almost like, have you ever seen people in the early CGI where they had the green screen or blue screen and they have to pretend like they're running?
Yeah.
Right? So you look like you're running, but you're really, you're running in place, and so the stuff in the background is moving. I feel like we're in some kind of holding pattern. Like we're still not moving forward. We're still fighting with each other when we should be looking at things in such a different way. There's so many issues going on, real important issues going on in the world. And that's probably, again, we're on the other side of the looking glass, looking at what we should be really looking at, which is on the other side of the mirror, and participating in that. And we're stuck in this, like you said, the box. So if you go back to the magazine cover, we're captured in this box.
Nano, if you're talking about everybody getting on with each other, that's dangerous talk, by the way. You need to watch yourself.
That is though. I mean, in reality, you know, you can talk about the Sasquatch, the aliens, all of the stuff we talk about, but it's the minute you start trying to bring people together that you actually start to stand out. And you can look at all the important kind of characters from recent history. Martin Luther King, what happened when he started talking unity, you know, and at a time right now when they're pushing so much division, Johnny Whistles is right. You know, coming together is the one thing they absolutely despise. And I think this technology, as much as I'm a fan of it, you know, it's done more to kind of separate us and disconnect us physically from one another than anything else. And that's the one thing that surprises me, Nano, that there isn't more of a kind of technological kind of theme, AI kind of depicted, that kind of stuff on the cover. And again, folks, you know, things are encoded. Sometimes the lack of information or the lack of evidence of something is evidence within itself. And so many different meanings we could make of this cover. But the technology side, and it said in its introduction, you know, when they were describing it, that it was almost the peak for Silicon Valley. What did it say inside the cover about Silicon Valley's future?
Well, there are, first of all, there are a lot of articles inside the magazine about tech, and they kind of bashed the tech companies.
It's almost as if they don't have to show us that because we should know that's coming, right? I mean, it's all in there anyway, and we've been speaking about this. So many people have been speaking about this for years now.
Well, isn't it true? So again, you know, we go back to the looking glass. You know, we're looking at what they want us to see, right? Yep. Okay, just look at this, right? But if you open the covers, they're talking about voting, because you said, what's the summary of what I saw reading the articles? They talked about democracy and voting. They talked about the tech sector, and they think that the tech boys and girls are going to get their butts kicked by the Congress and the you know, nothing will happen to their businesses, but supposedly they're going to be regulated. Tech is going to continue to spread. They're going to have social technology start to monitor your use. Like there'll be reminders, you've been online for a certain amount of time now, blah, blah, blah. You've got the facial recognition comments they're making. They talked about how they're gathering our information, what they're doing with it, that they want to create more laws, to regulate it, which I doubt is going to happen. Things like that. So that is in the Economist. Like if you go into the articles, what did they say? 2019 in China is the year of the pig, and 2019 in America is the year of the bad dog, the misbehaving tech companies. So they're calling them the bad dogs, misbehaving dogs.
It's a new name.
Yep, dogs.
The reservoir. The Reservoir Dogs of Silicon Valley. Sounds like the name. That's going to be the name of my first book, Johnny Whistles. What do you think, man?
Oh, that's a good one, Kev.
Should
be reading right now.
I can't believe it. We have somehow, although we've probably breezed over half of what Nano had to say, we've somehow made it to the end, Nano. And this gives me a chance to thank you for coming back on the show. It's been far too long. And, you know, for the audience out there, what have you been up to? Keeping well? You're going to be coming back a lot, I hope, in 2019. What's been happening in the world of NanoGirl?
Working over at one of the big companies that we're bashing today.
Can't say their names. It's a company with no name.
It's a company with no name. No, just working and putting in a lot of time, kind of taking care of some personal stuff, getting my tech stuff updated. I've really missed doing the show. I would love to come on a lot more now, and especially for 2019, where it's going to get probably very, very interesting and very crazy. And then kind of, just kind of looking at, I've actually spent 2018 stepping back, way, way back, and trying to distance myself from the reactions of the day-to-day stuff and think outside the box and the balloon and the bag and try to figure out what's really going on. It's becoming harder and harder.
Like we were saying before the show, 2018 was the year I bumped into Unirock. He helped make sense of my confusion and hilarity that I used to throw at QAnon. And he's somebody that we both continue to follow. But one of the flip sides of that, it's a good positive, or it's a good negative, should I say, is it's really opened my eyes to what goes on YouTube, NanoGirl. And like you say, even discernment now, who knows if we can fully trust in that? Because 2018 for me, it's really disheartened me in many respects with YouTube. It helped to wake me up. It encouraged me to pick up a camera. But now I look at what goes on there sometimes and it turns me off. It really does. Some of the characters on there, I just don't know what's happened to it.
I would agree with you. I've actually been quite shocked. I was talking to my friend the other day. I don't listen to a whole lot of people because of what they're into. They're going down a road that it's like, but you guys, this is make believe. But like the fear porn is still huge, and I refuse to listen to any of that stuff. That's not helpful. I do think it's important to reach out to our friends as much as we can and try to build the bridges. I hate that word. That's a big word. I think we're going to see a lot more of that word in 2019. And build your bridge.
You have to be your own boss. Definitely not me in this show. I never want to hear anyone saying I get all my info from there. I agree with everything Kev says. I have no character like that. And keep a very open mind. And the ones that you do start to like and listen to more, dig even deeper on them, because like Nano's saying, you just don't know anymore. It's crazy times. But at the same time, I'm optimistic for 2019 because we've still got our family growing here day by day at TFR on the show. And around us as well, I'm seeing more and more people physically, starting to wake up. Whether they're physically starting to look up from their phones or not, that's another question. But it's encouraging. And I'm sure in the end, despite all of the kind of stuff we can sometimes talk about on the show, NanoGirl, I'm quite convinced we win.
I do feel optimistic on some level. I feel like if they're spending this much time talking about democracy and voting, we must be doing something correct. If they're bashing what's his face, maybe he's doing a few things right. I mean, anything to make them kind of uncomfortable, that works for me. So, and I think the fact that we're pushing back in a peaceful way. Important.
Absolutely. And of course, this was us talking about the 33rd The World in 2019 Economist cover, their breakdown of what's in the year ahead. Can only do that with NanoGirl and Johnny Whistles right here on TFR Live. So for another night, wherever you are, make it TFR.
Didn't touch that dial.